So I just wanted to start off, and if you guys could all introduce yourselves quickly, that would be.
My name is Pennington. I'm a patent attorney who does mostly litigation. I brought out some props today to talk about some of the ways that people get into invention. I brought something there that's made out of metal that you can look at. I'll see if you can guess what it is. But there's a US patent on that I wrote a long time ago. A couple of books about certain inventors and a piece of stone. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I majored in physics going to college. In order to be a patent attorney, you have to be both. You have to have an engineering or hard science degree and a law degree. So it's the only law profession where there's a federal bar exam, and you have to pass that exam to call yourself a patent attorney. That's about it.
Thank you, Ed, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, and I owe a debt of gratitude to both Dr. Stavely and to Ed for the invitation to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to participate in this amazing event today. My name is Elizabeth Dougherty. I too am a patent attorney, but I work for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I am a 32-year veteran of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. She's been my one and only, having started there right out of my undergraduate career. Like Ed, I have a degree in physics and started at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office as a U.S. patent examiner. Now, I won't be offended if you have never heard of the remarkable career of being a U.S. patent examiner. Very few people wake up wanting to be a patent examiner, but it's a fantastic job, and I hope I'm going to have the opportunity today to tell you a little bit about it. But again, in my career at the USPTO, I've done a wide variety of things. I received my law degree while working as U.S. patent examiner, did legal policy work for about 10 years, and this latter part of my career has really been a unique opportunity and pleasure in that I do stakeholder engagement, which is really just a very long way of saying that I help people. I help inventors, innovators, entrepreneurs who are looking to understand and protect their creations. So I do a lot of teaching, training, demystifying the process. So again, it's my pleasure to be here with you today, and I am now going to pass the mic.
Hello, my name is Gabby, and first I'd like to thank one of my mentors, Mr. Vijay, for bringing me here. So I'm currently a high school senior, and I'm a leader of my robotics clubs for my community, and the Rotary Interact Club as well. So basically, our main goal is to help kids and children, just people around our community through STEM. So we build things that they need, such as libraries. If we see a problem, we try to solve it using STEM. And in my personal time, I try to make my own research projects. And I might need to talk to you guys later because I'm actually working on a patent for a fusion reactor I just designed.
Yeah, my name is SriRam. I'm right now the Chief of the Software and Systems Division at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or sister organization. We belong to the Department of Commerce. Prior to that, I got my PhD from Carnegie Mellon University. I was a civil engineer working in artificial intelligence. I went to MIT and I was a professor there for about 8 years. I joined NIST, thought I'd be there for 2 years, but became 30 years. Great environment to work, and we have actually a great program for high school students called the SHIP program, SHIP. So for some of you are interested in the program, you can talk to us. You can work with some of the best and the brightest scientists in the world when you are in high school, and also we have the same program for undergraduate students too. So we'll talk about that later on, but anyway, pass it on to Guru.
Thank you to the organizers. My name is Guru Madhavan. I'm a systems engineer by background, and my graduate and professional work have all been in biomedical engineering, specifically medical device development, and I had my engagement with the robots in the surgical theaters. So that's a kind of a mild perspective that I bring to this panel. I am the leadership of the National Academy of Engineering, which is an advisor to the nation on technical matters. Happy to discuss more, and how a former US president was involved, not George Washington, but someone else, in our creation to give us this responsibility.
Hi, I'm Vijay Kowtha. I retired from the Naval Research Labs. A bunch of NRL geeks who are here. We have celebrated 100 years of what Thomas Edison and wanted in the DC to provide Navy with research so that we won't be left behind. We have been in the bulwark of building technologies as scientists, but the key here is we have been doing STEM in DC for nearly 100 years. I chaired the Washington section of the IEEE, and IEEE was Institute of Radio Engineers then, 100 years ago. They got into STEM with trying to talk about wireless of the day. Right now, I'm the chair of the Junior Academy of Sciences at the Washington Academy. I'm here to ask each and every one of you to help me re-engage STEM in DC public schools and how we can build it up, having an event with the Washington Academy of Sciences in the spring of 2024 to bring back the joy of science in DC.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. So the first question I want to ask is about advancements in robotics. So recently there have been a lot of advancements in computer science, engineering, and robotics. And what do you think is the most important or interesting advancement so far?
So as a roboticist by volunteering, 25 years now in FIRST Robotics, we got it to DC at the Naval Academy and now moved it to other places. What we have done is we have taken those lead acid batteries that are on FIRST Robotics chassis to modularize it, think about ways of the future, and as a Rotarian, how could I use these robots in ways where I could help with the earthquake in Morocco or in the floods in Libya, and of course stateside with the fires in Mali. How can we enable technologies in robotics to be available and using the STEM force to be educated? And there are many additive manufacturing technologies that are coming into robotics with power that will make it happen. And we hope to have 3 of those innovations showcased in DC as a Junior Academy this year.
I'll be very brief here. I think an impressive area of robotic applications has been in customer fulfillment, notably pioneered by Amazon and their counterparts around the world, how to get something of your desire from one place to another in the speediest fashion. And I think robotics have played a significant role, and this is not something that we quite expected even a decade ago, but I think we have purposefully engineered it to achieve that level of efficacy and reliability.
Actually, if I were to talk about robotics, it would be the whole day, so I'm going to have to keep this brief because I've started about 40 years ago, and for those of you who remember the 3 Mile Island, there was a disaster around, and there was a set of robots which went in there and helped clean up the thing, and also the Chernobyl place. And the guy who was behind this technology is Red Whittaker. And Red Whittaker and I kind of started in robotics around the same field when we were at Carnegie Mellon. I was a graduate student and he was a professor. So what happened, is an incident here, and then I'll just kind of leave the thing there, is about 83 time frame. We got a contract where this was during the Star Wars era. So the missiles are going to come in and hit some mountain around here, and all our robots are going to be hiding in the mountain. And when the missiles hit the mountain, the robots are going to get activated, and the robots are going to go up and then fire the missile back because they're stored under the ground mountain. So we were given the task of developing what is known as a robotic tunnel boring machine. Of course, there's a problem here. Once an enemy missile hits that robot, he hits that mountain, everything is gone. There's nothing to tunnel through. Anyway, we given a project to develop the tunnel boring robot for that, and that's my first project in robotics. And once I was sitting in front of the computer, and Red Whittaker came to me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm developing this artificial intelligence program which is going to plan how this robot is going to go from the bottom of the mountain and go up the mountain." And he said, "You gotta be kidding, by the time your program runs and goes up there, we all be dead." And the way he did was that he used a tethered thing. Not a, we call it a robot, but it was connected by the cables onto an onboard computer. And he said, you have to go step by step. Don't try to solve the world's problems all at once. Okay, first try to see what your major problem here is. Your major problem is to get that damn thing running, and then that's what Red used to use all these things. And start small, and once you start small, then you can achieve a lot after that. And he got the things into the 3 Mile Island, he got into Chernobyl, and he got the robots to the Mars too. Now he's sending robots to the moon, and that's what it is. I mean, innovation doesn't come all at once. Innovation comes in stages. And now the state of the art of these robots is that there's a lot of technologies which have been developed, and it's not just because of one area that these robots have become what they are, but it's actually a confluence of a number of technologies. And also there's a lot of stuff going on, human-computer interfaces. When humans interface with the robots, that becomes very important too. So I think in terms of innovations, lots and lots of things are happening in AI, neural networks, deep learning, symbolic learning, and all these things. So all these things will have to converge for these things to happen. And you're seeing things like Tesla, which are really robotic kind of machines in a way. And as you know, there's all this sensing information which comes in, and then the human brain will have to have some kind of a decision making, and then some actions will have to take place. And that's one way we can define what a robot is. And if that's the way I define a robot is, you'll see robots everywhere around here.
So I think that people like to say Moore's law is dead. I think it's still continuing, and it's even faster during this year. So Moore's law is basically saying that each year chips get smaller, their power increases exponentially, and their price decreases exponentially. And we really saw that happen this year, especially with AI. Because even though we're reaching a limit into how small our chips can get, AI is also helping us redefine the architecture and remake how the chips actually work. So we saw NVIDIA do that a few months ago. They released a new chip for a supercomputer, which is like 100 times faster than one of the most expensive supercomputers. And one server is equivalent to about 100 of those supercomputers. And this trickles down to other subsystems like Raspberry Pis or Arduinos. Those would have been very expensive, like maybe 10 years ago, but their prices are dropping down as it's getting easier to make these, and they're getting even more powerful. So I think that's really what's happening to robots right now. It's not really the hardware that's changing much, but it's the more of rewriting the architectures that made up these old hardware. And if you've seen Boston Dynamics robots, there are those robots you see that would dance or do parkour. And a few years ago, they were very slow moving. They barely had any movement at all. But due to advances in software and more powerful chips that can compute poses and other things like that, they can essentially move better than an actual human being. They can calculate where to run better without even any AI integrated. So I think that's where robotics is going right now, and I'm really interested to see where it's going to be in the year.
Now that's someone who really knows robotics. Not being a robotics engineer myself, let me just speak from the perspective of the advance of invention and innovation. And really that's the foundation of the US intellectual property system. The intellectual property system is designed to allow people to build upon the technology of others. We receive over 650,000 patent applications each and every year and issue over 325,000 patents. Now with that said, we are seeing robotics and artificial intelligence infused in more and more applications across diverse technologies. So whereas we might have just had it, years ago, decades ago, in one simple examining area, where maybe some of our electrical patent examiners might be looking at robotics machines or mechanical examiners, we're finding it infused in technologies across the agency. So it's one of those things like artificial intelligence that we have to be able to work collaboratively amongst the individuals who work for our agency with very different backgrounds. So it's really fascinating, and it makes the career ever so more challenging. But it's good to know that people like those that are here on the panel are really keeping their ear to the ground as to the advances in robotics.
Well, professionally, the first time I was introduced to robots was dealt with the mechanics of the wrist. And the wrist is a very fundamental aspect of a robot that's meant to pick things up, move things, transfer things. And there's a lot of interesting mechanical engineering that goes into the mechanics of a robot. Now, what this young man was getting at in terms of computing, robots are really a combination of physical components and computer components. And what's happening now is our computers are so fast, so compact, and have so much memory that they can run programs that will do just about anything that you want to do. So software is a huge field for modern robotics. And what I'm seeing in my profession is autonomous vehicles. Once you get in a Tesla and it's driving itself, you're in a robot. And then in the military, you're seeing a lot, ironically, we get a lot of invention that comes out of dispute with other nation states. And there's a lot of work going on in the military field about having robotic sentries, for example. Instead of sending a soldier around the perimeter of the base, I'm going to send a robot. Well, what is that robot going to do? What's it going to look for? So we're looking at sensors. What are they sensing? How are they going to move? They're going to be on tracks. Is this something the terrain can handle? Is it going to have legs? There's just a wealth of things you can do with robots, and they're very, very important. Autonomous vehicles and drones. What's a drone? We always think of drones as up in the air. Well, what's a drone underwater? It's still a drone. What's a robot doing the sentry work? It's a drone. So we have land drones, water drones, air drones, and what these are robots doing things that we want them to do. They might be up there looking for bad guys. They might be under the water looking for bad guys or trying to blow something up. On the land, they're looking for bad guys. But they could be looking to deliver a package. They could be looking to pick you up. You know, you call Uber, and instead of a guy showing up in a Tesla, the Tesla shows up. Or some other form of vehicle that's sort of generic. So it's a huge field, and I think it's been really cracked wide open because of advances in semiconductor technology that gives us these compact chips that create a lot of function without taking up a lot of space or power. That's another big factor. You've got a bright future if you want to get into that. For the youngsters out there, you can go electrical engineering, computer engineering, mechanical engineering, physics. I've had, by the way, for the electrical engineers out there, what's the difference? You know what a capacitor is better than we do, but we know the theory of capacitance. So that's, you get that with chemistry and chemical engineers. What's the difference? There's so many different kinds of science that are wide open. It all starts with math. I'm preaching over here, but just study your math. If you can do math, you can do any engineering.
So I know a lot of you briefed about artificial intelligence, and I was just wanting to ask about how artificial intelligence is used in robotics, and what are the ethical and practical challenges that you face on a daily basis, or when you do projects, or any other work that you do in this intersection. What are some of the challenges you face?
All right. I'm going to start with a book that I read that talks about a dystopia where computers and machines displace all human labor. Okay? Is that a new phenomenon that we're about to see? And what would be the impact of that? What's the ethics of that? Well, the book was written in 1952 by Kurt Vonnegut. It's called Player Piano. And I would recommend anybody in this room to read it, whether you're a student or an adult. Read it because it talks about what happens when computers take over the world. Now, right now, we're worried about, we're going to have something out of one of these movies where the computer blows up the universe and it becomes evil and all these crazy things. Well, you have to program evil, so if you don't program evil, it's not likely to be evil. Does it learn to be evil? Well, I doubt it, okay? I doubt it at all. I think what came out in 1952, Kurt Vonnegut's issue was, what does it do to humans when we don't have anything to do? And it can destroy humans that way, not with bombs, but by making us have no purpose. So that is a sort of an ethical issue about what we do when we displace all labor and have consider what to do. I wanted to be a golf pro. And then I wanted to be a portion. And so you're going to evolve, and good news for the parents, they're not likely to be golf pros. What you really want to do as a kid, and if you're advising your kids, is you want a challenge. You know, if you're a good golfer, that's not a challenge. You're just out for the prize. But the nice thing about science and engineering is it's challenging. And if, you know, if you like that, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, to go off of Ed's point that, you know, it is a challenge. It's true. In science, no 2 days are the same. Even if running the same experiment, no 2 days are the same. And certainly from the perspective of working at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, that's one of the most exciting things about being a U.S. patent examiner, is we like to say at the USPTO, we saw tomorrow yesterday. We're truly on the cutting edge of technology. We see technologies delivered from the hands of our inventors before they ever make it to the market shelves, before they make it to consumer products. But with respect to artificial intelligence, one of the challenges we face in the intellectual property system, and something that we're wrangling with, as well as intellectual property offices across the globe, is can artificial intelligence be recognized as an inventor? Now, under the current US laws, the answer is no. But I would say never. As we know, the world is an ever-changing place. And have we received patent applications that have been filed by at least partial artificial intelligence means, or entirely artificial intelligence means? I can't say, because I don't know for sure. But at this point in time, in order to receive a US patent, to have your US patent application recognized as being from an inventor, it has to come from an individual or an entity of individuals or an organization. It cannot be merely filed by artificial intelligence. Now, it's something we're going to continue to grapple with as it becomes an ever more broad-reaching part of our world. And we are, in fact, as an agency, harnessing artificial intelligence for the work that we do. Because, as I said, we receive over 650,000 patent applications each and every year. And with that, the world of technology is ever growing. So how do we evaluate if something is entitled to a US patent by looking at the world of technology when there is so much out there? So we're using artificial intelligence to help us review what technologies already exist, to help us disseminate our applications to our examiners, and in a host of other ways. So there's a lot of good and maybe some challenges to artificial intelligence, but we're going to continue to look at it day by day, and in fact have stood up in our agency an artificial intelligence and emerging technologies partnership, so we can partner with academia, industry, and other government agencies to better appreciate and understand what is being presented to us.
I consider myself more of a proponent of artificial intelligence. I believe it's going to really be the thing that helps us advance throughout these years. The topic is called the singularity. Ray Kurzweil came up with it a few years, well, not a few years ago, like a few decades ago. And it's really one of those things I'm looking forward to, and I think AI is going to lead to it. And I have a short story about me dealing with the ethics of AI in one of my projects. So essentially, it was a smart glasses project that I'm working on, and it incorporates AI into the glasses. But one of my mentors was discussing that, hey, is this connected to the internet? Like, the AI essentially listens to what someone is saying and gives you whatever information you need about that person whenever you meet them again, or whatever new information you need. And they're worrying about what else is the AI going to learn that person might not want you to learn about them, and should we always have this AI be on? So that's the thing we always need to consider, because AI might hinder how much privacy we have. It might, you might see authoritarian states using AI to essentially track people's every moves. So that's a really big worry as this gets more integrated into all of our technologies. But all in all, I think AI is going to be very influential. It's going to affect every field. It's going to affect biology. It's going to affect physics. It's not only going to help us, but it's going to hold our hand essentially and make us smarter in each of these fields. I think I personally think AI should be one of the main topics we should focus on as a scientific community, because someone once said that AI would be humanity's last invention. I think that's a very true statement, because once we have AI, it can just make itself smarter, and it can solve almost every one of our problems. And as he stated before, if it does that, what becomes of us humans if we don't have any more problems to solve? And I personally don't know what we would do at that point. But I think even though us as humans, we are a very creative species, we don't like problems. We want a very free life, and AI is the road to that. And personally, I think despite all of AI's issues, all its ethical issues that we might have to deal with in the upcoming future, it's still one of the most influential things and one of the most important things we should work on.
In terms of there are several aspects to your question, so it's kind of hard to answer everything. But in terms of the evolution of AI itself, we have seen, at least in my life of 40 years, I've seen AI going from knowledge level through neural networks, through neuro-symbolic computing. And then the next stage is going to be the conscious machine. Okay, can the machine have consciousness is the key question that needs to be asked. And the minute you start asking them questions, then you ask about, it comes into ethics immediately. Now, what is a conscious machine to deal with ethics as such? How does it deal with ethics? Because the machine is conscious, it's self-aware. And then there is this whole thing, you get into philosophy of AI. So in that case, then, if you look at human beings, we have something called the self-awareness as such, okay? So how is the machine going to be self-aware? Does the machine know what it is, okay? And in fact, in the whole Indian philosophy, there is something called Tao or that kind of thing, okay? So can a machine learn, can a machine become like that is a key question. So those are the kinds of things one needs to answer, but these things are going to be quite advanced in the future. But I don't think we need to be really scared about those things. The only thing is we need to mitigate risk and manage risk associated with these things. So that becomes fundamentally important. And also in regards, I think most companies will have an AI ethics officer such to deal with some of the questions that you're kind of posing. So which will come on. I can agree to.
So I mentioned that the National Academies were created by a U.S. president, and that was Abraham Lincoln, the other U.S. president to have a patent along with George Washington. And he created it specifically to forecast advanced technologies and how to properly and responsibly engage with them. And the technology challenge of 1860s, post-Civil War, basically, when the United States was getting into advanced naval systems. So this was a time when wooden ships were all replaced by iron ships. And of course, you engage with the technical issues of what do you do with corrosion. And that was a completely novel scientific challenge back then. And you didn't have the technology of paint to deal with it at that point. Similarly, how do you go about navigating these iron ships? Of course, you had magnetic compasses, and of course, you know what happens when you put magnet and iron together. And of course, everything is being misdirected, misfired, and so forth. So you have to come up with a non-magnetic means of guiding these ships, and that was the gyro technology, which would take about 20, 30 years. So technology of paint and technology of the gyro-based navigation would take 30, 40 years to develop. So we kind of knew where the AI was going maybe 40, 50 years ago, even in the earlier stages, and the National Academy knew that. And of course, the U.S. Patent Office knew about that, and NIST set standards for this, so everyone knew about that. Now we are in a context where we feel like AI is overpowering us, and of course, our young colleague here optimistically stated or forecasted the convergence that Ray Kurzweil was talking about earlier on. How do you engage with it? And I think from it comes the deeper question that was raised earlier about purpose, right? And I would even add the role of meaning and relevance of what human ingenuity and creativity brings, which I think underpins much of the inventions that we were also talking about earlier. What kinds of engineering we ought to be doing? What kinds of work we have to be doing to shape these technologies? And I think those are fundamentally ancient questions, kind of an ancient intelligence, the other AI, so to speak. that we need to think about, and we are not putting enough work in engaging with those things because they are hard. Just because an AI is faster, smarter, and delivers tacos much faster than I can imagine, then I think we shouldn't really surrender to those conveniences. Just basically echoing some of the points that are made earlier.
So I have a totally different perspective, like my mentee. I came to DC to work at the Laboratory of Biophysics, which was called the Monkey Lab, in the 80s. And the Monkey Lab was built by Kenneth Cole, who was in the radiation labs in Chicago. So atomic bomb, if you have seen Oppenheimer, you have been to that space in Chicago. So he was worried about radiation effects in the 40s. And Casey built the neuroscience that we talk about, AI, at the Laboratory of Biophysics at NIH. Navy was the lead because it was the Navy commander. And Casey would tell us, again, historically, about why biophysics, why basic understanding of oscillators. And we used them, and when I came to the Naval Research Labs, the first thing AFSIA put out on my research was NRL was building clones, neural clones, because I was using neuroscience, wet neuroscience, to build design systems. We were at racetracks of cells doing activities. Ethical AI became an issue because NRL is a government lab, couldn't be doing such things with being on the Washington Post. So people are worried about it, but at the end, as Gabby suggested, technology is something that's going to be there. And Casey also fought through this in the 40s, in the 50s, and at NIH until '84 when he died. And Casey was a big supporter. We had the design-based curriculum that Casey and Rick Fitzhugh built over time that started kids to design, model neural systems, and of course used by everyone in the world. Again, neuroscience is wet, neuroscience is fun, neuroscience is going to take us places, as Gabby suggested. AI is going to be helping the seniors, AI is going to be helping. We need to advance it and not worry about the ethics is there, and we have to learn to deliver.
So we're actually almost out of time, but I do want to ask one last question, but it's going to be very brief. So if you could give advice to a high school student who wants to pursue this career in one word, what would that word be?
Be different.
Be responsible.
Be persistent.
I am a high school student, but I would say be creative.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Be curious.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I know it was tricky. I put you on the spot, but thank you so much for being here. And yes,
Can I say one word about these two folks here?
yes, go ahead.
I think you had on the topic something about collaboration, and all the scientists want to collaborate together. The guy who invented television was a guy named Philo T. Farnsworth, and he was a solo guy from the Midwest who came up with the ideas of television while he was plowing fields. So you could be Philo T. Farnsworth, a person, light bulb comes on, you've got this incredible invention. Then you have engineers at GE. This book is called The New Alchemist. And alchemistry is when you make new materials, make new elements. And we used to think back in 500 years ago that you could make gold out of something. Well, GE made gold out of synthetic diamonds. So this was about the invention of synthetic diamonds, which basically used physics of high temperature and high pressure to push materials into diamond form. And those artificial diamonds you can buy as engagement rings if you're a cheapskate. Or you can use them in industrial production. For example, taking sandstone and turning it into marble. So you can cut and you can shape and you can polish. You see stone everywhere because of those synthetic diamonds. And then one more thing, that is a steam turbine blade. So every time you turn on the lights, some steam hit that blade to generate that electricity. Whether that was made by burning coal, burning natural gas, using nuclear power, wind power. Well, wind power's out, but if you are using heat to create steam, that's where you get your electricity from, and that's where most of the electricity comes from. And by the way, for material scientists, that's a kind of material called Inconel, which is it's a form of stainless steel. There's a lot of invention in coming up with the right materials. I heard a dentist from here earlier. Dental materials have been a boom in terms of what they're coming up with. And last but not least is, who invented that piece of rock right there? And you could say, if you're well, God, let's put it that way, or it evolved all by itself. That is Solnhofen stone from the quarries in Bavaria, where they had lithography stones. And lithography is where we came up with computer chips, by the way. That's how we make them with lithography, when we etch those patterns that go into the chips. And the early lithography materials were this Solnhofen stone. It's also where they found the Archaeopteryx fossil, if you're a biomedical person. That was the first winged fossil. It was a bird fossil that was found in that stone, in between the layers of that stone. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Now we have our last panel. It is a short panel, but it's on workforce development, so it's just as important. Yeah, we can get started